The message arrived on a Tuesday morning, Earth Standard Time. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stared at the holographic display floating above her desk, reading the formal invitation for the third time. After 300 years of complete silence from the galaxy's major powers, humanity had finally been noticed. "Ma'am, the President is waiting for your call," her assistant said from the doorway. Elena nodded but kept reading. The Galactic Space Council wanted humanity to appear before them, not to join them, not to negotiate trade agreements, but to address concerns regarding human expansion into regulated space sectors. The language was polite, but Elena had spent her career reading between diplomatic lines. This was a summons, not an invitation. She activated the secure communication link to Earth's capital. President Martinez appeared on screen, his face showing the same worry Elena felt in her stomach. "What do you think, Elena?" he asked without greeting. "I think we're about to be told our place in the galaxy," she replied, "and I don't think they plan to give us a very good one." The Council's reputation preceded them across known space. For over 10,000 years, they had maintained peace through a simple system. Strong species ruled, weak species served, and everyone knew which category they belonged to. The Zephyrians had built an empire spanning 1,000 star systems using their crystal technology. The Vorthak Collective could turn entire fleets into pure energy and back again. The mysterious architects could build structures that existed in multiple dimensions at once. Humanity had metal ships powered by fusion reactors. In galactic terms, they were barely past the Stone Age. "How long do we have to decide?" Martinez asked. "The message says we have 10 standard days to respond. If we accept, we send a delegation to their neutral station in the Kepler system. And if we refuse?" Elena looked at the final paragraph of the message again. The words were carefully chosen, but the meaning was clear. Refusal would be seen as hostile intent toward galactic stability. The Council had ways of dealing with hostile species. "Then we become a problem that needs solving," she said. 2 days later, Elena stood in the docking bay of Earth's finest diplomatic vessel, the Endeavor. The ship was humanity's pride, a sleek design with the most advanced technology Earth could produce. Compared to what waited for them at the Council station, it would look like a child's toy. Dr. Chen Wei joined her at the observation deck as they prepared for departure. The elderly scientist had volunteered for the mission despite his age. Elena was grateful for his presence. If anyone could explain human technology to alien minds, it was Chen. "Nervous?" he asked, watching the Earth grow smaller through the viewport. "Terrified," Elena admitted. "We're flying into a room full of gods with nothing but our wits and some clever engineering." Chen smiled. "You might be surprised what clever engineering can accomplish." The journey to the Kepler system took 6 days at maximum speed. Elena spent the time studying everything humanity knew about Council species. The Zephyrians grew their technology like living crystal, creating ships that could repair themselves and weapons that adapted to any defense. The Vorthak had abandoned physical form centuries ago, existing as pure energy that could inhabit any technology they chose. The architects were the most mysterious. No one had seen their true form in 1,000 years. They built impossible structures, space stations that were bigger inside than outside, weapons that fired backwards through time, shields that existed in parallel universes. Some scientists thought they weren't even originally from this dimension. Against such powers, humanity had determination and fusion reactors entering the Kepler system now, announced Captain Rodriguez from the bridge. Elena joined him at the command center and immediately understood why the Council chose this location for their meetings. The system contained no planets, just a single yellow star surrounded by the most incredible artificial structures she had ever seen. The Council station was a sphere the size of Earth's moon, its surface covered in crystal growths that pulsed with inner light. Around it floated the visiting ships, each one a masterpiece of alien engineering. A Zephyrian vessel grew new sections as they watched, crystal formations blooming like flowers. A Vorthak ship flickered between solid matter and pure energy, its form constantly shifting. In the distance, an architect construct appeared to be folding space around itself, creating geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Where do we dock?" Rodriguez asked. "Follow the navigation beacon," Elena said, watching a small light appear on their screens. It led them to a section of the station that looked almost mundane compared to the rest. clearly designed for species that still needed physical docking ports. The docking bay was huge, easily large enough for 50 ships like the Endeavour. Only 3 berths were occupied. Elena recognized the designs from her briefings, ships from other young species that had been summoned before, species that had either joined the Council's system or disappeared from galactic records entirely. As they walked through the station's corridors, Elena marveled at the technology surrounding them. The walls themselves seemed alive, shifting colors to provide perfect lighting for whatever species was passing. The artificial gravity adjusted automatically to match each visitor's home world. Translation fields ensured that every word was understood perfectly by every listener. Impressive, Chen murmured, running his hand along a wall that felt like metal but looked like flowing water. It should be, Elena replied. They've had 10,000 years to perfect it. The council chamber was a vast amphitheater with seating arranged for dozens of different alien physiologies. Elena and her small human delegation were directed to a section clearly designed for bipedal species. Comfortable enough, but obviously an afterthought. The other delegates were already present. The Zephyrian representatives looked like living statues carved from rainbow crystal, their forms beautiful and utterly alien. The Vorthak delegation appeared as shifting patterns of light that occasionally took humanoid shape. The architect's seat was occupied by something that Elena's eyes couldn't quite focus on. A presence that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the human mind could process. Council Leader Thys, a Zephyrian whose crystal body contained swirling galaxies of light, called the session to order. When she spoke, her voice rang like singing crystal, and the translation field rendered her words in perfect diplomatic English. The Council recognizes the delegation from the species known as humans, Thys announced. You have been summoned to address concerns regarding your expansion into galactic space. Elena stood, feeling very small in the vast chamber. The Earth government thanks the Council for this opportunity to address your concerns. A ripple of sound that might have been laughter came from the Vorthak section. One of their energy forms solidified into a roughly humanoid shape and spoke in a voice like controlled lightning. Opportunity. The Vorthak said, You misunderstand your situation, primitive ones. Your species has spread to 17 star systems without permission. You build weapons without understanding their consequences. You claim territory that has been designated for proper development by your betters. Chen leaned forward in his seat. Betters? He asked quietly, but his voice carried in the chamber's perfect acoustics. The crystal being who was Thys focused her attention on the elderly scientist. Your species has existed in space for less than 400 years. The Zephyrian hierarchy has maintained galactic order for 10 millennia. The Vorthak Collective has mastered the fundamental forces of reality itself. The architects build structures that transcend dimensional limitations. What have humans accomplished that could possibly compare? Elena felt the weight of the moment. This was humanity's test, and they were failing before it had even begun. Around the chamber, other alien delegates watched with expressions that ranged from amusement to pity. To them, humanity was a curiosity at best, a problem to be solved at worst. We have survived, Elena said simply. Survival is not achievement, Thys replied. A virus survives. An asteroid survives. Intelligence is measured by what one builds, not by what one endures. The Vorthak energy being flickered with what might have been impatience. Enough philosophy. The matter is simple. Humanity will accept client status under Zephyrian guidance, or humanity will be relocated to preserve galactic stability. Choose now. Elena looked around the chamber one more time. Every alien face, energy pattern, and impossible geometry was focused on her, waiting for humanity's surrender. They had already decided humanity's fate. This meeting was just a formality. Before we answer, Elena said, her voice steady despite her racing heart, perhaps the Council would be interested in seeing what human engineering has actually accomplished. The council chamber fell silent at Elena's words. Thys's crystal form shifted through several colors before settling on what Elena's briefing materials had identified as amused condescension. Human engineering? Thys said, her voice carrying harmonics that sounded like gentle mockery. Your species has barely mastered controlled fusion. Your ships move through space using crude chemical thrust and simple gravity manipulation. What could you possibly show us that we have not seen and surpassed millennia ago? The Vorthak delegate's energy form pulsed brighter. This is delay tactics. The primitives seek to waste our time with demonstrations of their limited capabilities. From the architect section came something that wasn't quite a voice, more like the sound of space itself bending. The translation field struggled with the concepts before producing words. Time construct irrelevant. Decision matrix already calculated. Human species parameters insufficient for autonomous existence. Elena reached into her diplomatic case and withdrew a device no larger than her palm. It looked unremarkable, a simple black cube with a few control surfaces. To the assembled aliens, it probably appeared laughably primitive compared to their living crystal technology and energy manipulation systems. Dr. Chen, Elena said, "Would you care to explain to the council what they're looking at?" Chen rose slowly from his seat, his aged frame making him appear even more fragile in the vast chamber. When he spoke, his voice was calm and professorial, as if he were addressing a university lecture hall rather than the most powerful beings in the galaxy. "What Ambassador Vasquez holds is a dark matter resonance beacon," Chen said. "For the past 3 centuries, while the galaxy assumed humanity was struggling to master basic spaceflight, we have been working on a rather different problem." The chamber remained silent, but Elena noticed that several alien delegates were now paying closer attention. Dark matter was a known phenomenon throughout the galaxy, the invisible substance that made up most of the universe's mass. It was also considered essentially impossible to manipulate directly. "The difficulty with dark matter," Chen continued, "is that it interacts with ordinary matter only through gravitational force. Every species in this chamber has built their technology around manipulating normal matter, the 4% of the universe that's actually visible. Humanity took a different approach." This leaned forward slightly, her crystal body showing the first signs of genuine interest. "Dark matter manipulation is a theoretical impossibility. It cannot be contained, directed, or weaponized by any known means." Chen smiled. "That's what we thought too initially. But being a young species has certain advantages. We weren't bound by 10,000 years of assumptions about what was impossible." Elena activated the beacon. The reaction was immediate and terrifying. Every advanced sensor in the council chamber began screaming warnings. Gravity alarms shrieked as massive gravitational anomalies began appearing throughout the star system. The station's own artificial gravity fluctuated wildly, causing several delegates to grab their seats for stability. "What have you done?" the Vorthak delegate demanded, its energy form flickering frantically as it tried to process the sensor data. "We've activated a simple positioning beacon," Elena replied calmly. "It sends a dark matter pulse that can be detected by appropriately equipped receivers." The architect presence seemed to intensify, its impossible geometry shifting as it focused attention on the human delegation. When it spoke again, the translation field rendered concepts that human language could barely contain. "Gravitational matrix disturbance indicates massive-scale dark matter manipulation. Impossibility parameters exceeded. Explanation required." Chen moved to the chamber's central display system, which automatically adapted to accept his simple data tablet. What appeared on the holographic display made every alien delegate freeze in shock. The system map showed the Kepler star system as they all knew it, the central star, the council station, and the assembled fleet of visiting ships. But overlaid on that familiar picture was something else entirely. Massive gravitational signatures were appearing throughout the system, each one indicating the presence of objects with the mass of small moons. "You see," Chen explained, "the problem with dark matter research isn't that it's impossible. It's that it requires thinking about the universe differently. While your species spent millennia perfecting the manipulation of the tiny fraction of matter that's visible, we focused on the vast majority that everyone ignores." "This is a trick," Thais said, but her crystal form was shifting through colors that Elena's briefings identified as confusion and growing concern. "Sensor ghosts, false readings designed to mimic gravitational anomalies." Elena looked around the chamber, meeting the gaze of every delegate. "Dr. Chen, perhaps you could explain to the council why their sensors are all registering the same impossible readings." "Because they're not impossible," Chen replied. "For the past 2 centuries, humanity has been building a fleet capable of manipulating dark matter directly. Our ships don't just travel through space. They manipulate the gravitational structure of space itself." The Vorthak delegate's energy form was cycling through patterns that suggested extreme agitation. Even if dark matter manipulation were possible, which it is not, the energy requirements would be astronomical. No species has the power generation capacity to achieve such effects on a meaningful scale. Chen's smile widened. That's another assumption that limited your thinking. You've all been trying to generate energy to manipulate matter. We learned to manipulate the matter that generates energy. Dark matter doesn't just make up most of the universe's mass, it's also the source of most of the universe's gravitational potential energy. Show them, Elena said quietly. Chen touched a control on his tablet. In the holographic display, one of the gravitational signatures began moving. It accelerated smoothly through space, reaching velocities that should have been impossible for anything with significant mass. As it moved, the space around it visibly warped, bending light and creating gravitational lensing effects that were clearly visible to every sensor in the system. A simple demonstration, Chen said, one of our smaller reconnaissance vessels changing position. As you can see, when you can manipulate dark matter directly, the normal limitations of momentum and inertia become more like suggestions. The chamber erupted into chaos. Alien delegates were frantically communicating with their home fleets, trying to understand what their sensors were telling them. The Zephyrian section blazed with rapidly shifting colors as their crystal technology attempted to process the implications. The Vorthak energy forms were flickering so rapidly they appeared almost solid. Only the architect remained still, its impossible presence focused entirely on the human delegation. When it spoke, the words carried a weight that seemed to press down on everyone in the chamber. Timescale questioned. Development period insufficient for described advancement. Deception probability calculated. Elena stood up, the small beacon still active in her hand. No deception, honored architect. Humanity has been developing dark matter manipulation technology for 300 years. We started the research the day we detected your first scout ships entering our local space cluster. The silence that followed was absolute. Every alien delegate in the chamber stared at the human delegation with expressions of shock, confusion, and growing fear. You've been watching us for 3 centuries? Thys whispered, her crystal form dim with what Elena recognized as the Zephyrian equivalent of stunned disbelief. We've been learning from you, Elena corrected. Every species that visited human space, every long-range scan of our systems, every primitive human ship that crossed paths with galactic civilization. We've been studying your technology, your tactics, your assumptions about what was possible. Chen added, we realized very early that we couldn't compete with your mastery of conventional matter manipulation. So we chose a different path entirely. While you perfected technologies based on the 4% of the universe you could see, we learned to work with the 96% you couldn't. The beacon in Elena's hand pulsed once more, and the gravitational readings throughout the system spiked dramatically. Every alien sensor array was now detecting gravitational anomalies equivalent to a small fleet of massive vessels. The question now, Elena said, her voice carrying clearly through the stunned silence, is whether the Council is ready to discuss what humanity has actually been building, while you thought we were playing with fusion rockets. In the growing quiet of the chamber, the only sound was the steady beeping of gravitational alarms that no alien technology could silence. The gravitational alarms continued their steady warning, as Elena watched the Council delegates struggle to process what their sensors were telling them. The beacon in her hand pulsed with a soft blue light, each pulse sending dark matter resonance waves throughout the star system. This is impossible, Thys declared, her crystal form blazing with angry red light. No species can manipulate dark matter on this scale. Your readings are false, designed to create fear through deception. The Vorthak delegate's energy form solidified into its most aggressive configuration, a towering humanoid shape crackling with barely contained power. Even if these readings were real, which they cannot be, your primitive vessels would be no match for Council fleet capabilities. We have weapons that can turn entire planets to energy. Elena looked at Dr. Chen, who gave her a slight nod. It was time for the demonstration that would change everything. Dr. Chen, Elena said, I think the Council needs to see the difference between what they think they know about human capabilities and what we've actually built. Chen activated a different control on his tablet. The beacon in Elena's hand began resonating at a new frequency, and immediately every sensor in the chamber began detecting something that should have been impossible. The space around the Council station was changing. Not visibly, The human eye could see nothing different. But every gravitational sensor, every mass detector, every spatial measurement device was registering massive objects materializing out of nowhere. Full spectrum revelation protocol engaged, Chen announced calmly. All fleet units, you are clear to decloak. What happened next would be remembered as the moment galactic civilization realized everything had changed. Throughout the Kepler system, space itself began to bend and twist. Gravitational lensing effects appeared as invisible objects with enormous mass began revealing themselves. The first ship materialized directly above the Council Station, a massive vessel that dwarfed even the largest architect constructs. The human warship was beautiful and terrifying. Its hull appeared to be made of controlled dark matter itself, a surface that absorbed light and bent space around it. As it fully decloaked, the station's artificial gravity fluctuated wildly, unable to compensate for the gravitational field of an object that massive appearing so suddenly. Flagship Event Horizon reporting full operational status, came a voice over the communication system. Admiral Sarah Chen requesting permission to address the Council. Elena smiled at the shocked faces around her. Council permission granted, Admiral. A holographic projection appeared in the chamber's center, showing a human woman in military uniform. Admiral Sarah Chen looked remarkably like Dr. Chen, clearly a family resemblance. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone commanding power beyond imagination. Honored delegates of the Galactic Council, Admiral Chen said, I am Admiral Sarah Chen, commanding officer of the Human Dark Matter Fleet. What you are witnessing is the revealing of 50 Titan-class dark matter manipulation vessels that have been present in this system since before your council session began. The chamber's displays automatically updated to show the system-wide sensor readings. 50 massive gravitational signatures were now visible throughout the Kepler system, each one indicating the presence of a vessel larger than anything in the Council's combined fleets. Thesa's crystal form was cycling through colors so rapidly it was almost painful to watch. 50 ships? That's impossible. We detected no fleet movements, no approach signatures, no energy trails. How could 50 vessels of that mass enter this system undetected? Admiral Chen's holographic image smiled. Because you were looking for ships that move through space the way your vessels do. Our ships don't travel around gravitational fields. They create and manipulate them. We've been here for 3 days, folded into dark matter constructs that your sensors interpreted as natural cosmic background. To demonstrate her point, Admiral Chen activated a display showing the tactical situation from the human fleet's perspective. The Council Station appeared as a tiny dot surrounded by the alien vessels, which looked pathetically small compared to the massive human warships now decloaking throughout the system. Each Titan-class vessel, Admiral Chen continued, is essentially a mobile dark matter manipulation platform. We don't build ships that carry weapons. We build ships that can manipulate the fundamental forces of reality. The Vorthak delegate attempted to interrupt. Enough demonstrations. Even if your impossible claims were true, the Council fleet represents the combined military might of a dozen species. Our weapons can... The delegate's words cut off as one of the human ships demonstrated exactly what dark matter manipulation could accomplish. With no visible energy discharge, no projectile launch, no warning of any kind, the Vorthak ship's shields simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not overloaded, they just stopped working, as if the fundamental forces that powered them had been switched off. Your energy-based shielding systems, Admiral Chen explained conversationally, depend on maintaining specific electromagnetic field configurations. Dark matter manipulation allows us to alter the gravitational environment in which those fields exist. We can essentially turn off any technology that relies on controlled energy patterns. The Vorthak delegate's energy form was now flickering frantically, trying to restore its ship's defenses. This is impossible. Energy cannot be simply switched off. Conservation laws apply to closed systems. Dr. Chen interrupted from his seat in the council chamber. When you can manipulate dark matter directly, you can alter the fundamental structure of space-time itself. Conservation laws still apply, but the system is no longer closed in the way you understand it. Admiral Chen activated another demonstration. One of the human vessels began moving through space in a way that violated every known law of physics. It accelerated instantly to tremendous speed, then stopped just as suddenly. then began moving in a direction perpendicular to its previous course, without any visible course correction. Inertia, momentum, action, and reaction, Admiral Chen said. All of these concepts assume that mass must push against something to create motion. When you can manipulate the dark matter structure of space itself, you can create artificial gravitational gradients that allow movement without reaction mass. The most dramatic demonstration came next. Another human vessel appeared to collapse in on itself, shrinking to a point of light, then expanded again at a different location entirely. Short-range teleportation through controlled gravitational folding. Admiral Chen explained. We create a temporary space-time curvature that brings two distant points together, allow the ship to cross the fold, then release the curvature. The ship effectively steps from one location to another without crossing the space between. The architect presence in the chamber suddenly intensified, its impossible geometry shifting into new configurations that hurt to look at directly. When it spoke, the translation field struggled with concepts that seemed to exist outside normal spacetime. Dimensional manipulation achieved through gravitational matrix control. Achievement level beyond current architect capabilities. Species classification requires immediate revision. Elena stood up, looking around the chamber at the stunned alien delegates. For 3 centuries, the galaxy has assumed that humanity was struggling to master basic technology. You were wrong. We were learning to master the universe itself. Admiral Chen's hologram gestured and the tactical display zoomed out to show the entire human fleet, 50 massive vessels arranged in a perfect sphere around the Council Station, each one capable of manipulating gravity, creating artificial black holes, folding space, and turning off enemy technology at will. The question now, Admiral Chen said, is whether the Galactic Council is prepared to discuss a new relationship with humanity. Because whether you realize it or not, this demonstration has already shown you that the old assumptions about galactic power are no longer valid. On the chamber's main display, one final demonstration began. A human vessel approached a small asteroid in the outer system. With no visible effort, no energy discharge, no projectile launch, the asteroid simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not vaporized, it just stopped being there, as if reality had forgotten it had ever existed. Controlled gravitational collapse into a micro-black hole, Admiral Chen explained casually. The black hole immediately evaporates due to Hawking radiation, leaving nothing behind. We can erase matter from existence using nothing but gravitational manipulation. The silence in the council chamber was absolute. Every alien delegate stared at the displays showing human vessels casually demonstrating power that made their own civilization's greatest achievements look primitive. The galaxy, Elena said quietly, is about to change. The council chamber remained frozen in shocked silence for nearly a full minute after the asteroid demonstration. Elena watched as the reality of humanity's technological superiority sank into alien minds that had spent millennia believing themselves the masters of the universe. This was the first to speak, her crystal form now a deep purple that Elena's briefings identified as profound confusion, mixed with fear. This cannot be real. In 10,000 years of galactic civilization, no species has achieved direct dark matter manipulation. The energy requirements alone should make it impossible. Dr. Chen stood slowly, his elderly frame somehow carrying more authority than it had when the session began. Honored Thais, that's exactly the kind of thinking that made this possible. While your species spent 10,000 years perfecting the manipulation of normal matter, you never questioned whether normal matter was what you should be focusing on. The Vorthak delegate's energy form was flickering through patterns that suggested desperate calculation. Even accepting the impossible premise that you can manipulate dark matter, your species lacks the industrial capacity to build 50 vessels of that magnitude. Our intelligence networks would have detected construction projects of that scale. Admiral Chen's hologram smiled from the center of the chamber. That's another assumption that limited your understanding. You think in terms of building ships like you build your crystal vessels or energy constructs. We don't build our ships, we grow them. The display changed to show the interior of one of the human vessels. Instead of the metal corridors and mechanical systems the aliens expected, they saw something that looked more like a living organism. Dark matter flowed through channels that pulsed with their own gravitational rhythm. The ship's hull wasn't constructed. It was a controlled gravitational field given semi-solid form. Our ships exist at the boundary between matter and energy, Dr. Chen explained. They're not built in shipyards. They're cultivated in dark matter gardens hidden throughout human space. Each vessel starts as a gravitational seed and grows over decades into a full dark matter manipulation platform. The architect present suddenly shifted, its impossible geometry rearranging itself into patterns that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the chamber could contain. When it spoke, the translation field produced words that carried terrifying implications. Growth pattern suggests biological technological integration. Species development trajectory indicates transcendence beyond physical matter limitations. Threat assessment requires maximum priority evaluation. Elena felt the shift in the chamber's atmosphere. What had started as shocked disbelief was rapidly becoming something much more dangerous. Fear that could lead to desperation. And desperate alien civilizations with world-ending weapons were not something humanity wanted to face. Honored delegates, Elena said, her voice cutting through the rising tension. Humanity has not revealed this capability to threaten the Council or to destabilize galactic civilization. We've revealed it to establish our place as equals in the galactic community. The Vorthak delegate's energy form suddenly blazed brighter, taking on an aggressive configuration. Equals? Your species seeks to intimidate ancient civilizations with parlor tricks and impossibilities. The Vorthak Collective has maintained galactic stability for millennia. We will not be threatened by primitives who stumbled upon a single advanced technology. Elena noticed that several alien delegations were now communicating frantically with their home fleets. Warning signals and emergency protocols were being activated across a dozen star systems. The revelation of human capabilities was causing exactly the kind of panic she had hoped to avoid. Admiral Chen, Elena said, perhaps you could clarify humanity's intentions regarding galactic stability. Admiral Chen's holographic form turned to address the Vorthak delegate directly. The human fleet has no interest in destabilizing the galaxy. Our goal is to establish humanity's right to exist as an independent species without council oversight or control. Independence? This crystal form blazed with angry red light. No species achieves independence from galactic order. The strong guide the weak. This has been the foundation of peace for 10,000 years. Your technology does not exempt you from the natural hierarchy of civilization. Elena had expected this response. The Council's entire power structure was based on technological superiority, creating political dominance. Humanity's breakthrough threatened the fundamental assumptions that held their civilization together. The natural hierarchy, Elena repeated, based on what exactly age? The length of time a species has existed doesn't determine its right to freedom. Technological achievement? We've just demonstrated that humanity has achieved something no other species has managed in 10,000 years of trying. Size of empire? Admiral Chen added. Human space encompasses 47 star systems with a combined population of 38 billion. We're not a small primitive tribe hiding in the galactic backwaters. Dr. Chen moved to the chamber's central display, calling up a new image that showed the galaxy from humanity's perspective. Instead of the council-centered map that dominated galactic politics, this view showed human space as a significant region with its own trade routes, resource networks, and defensive positions. For 3 centuries, Dr. Chen said, humanity has been building an independent civilization that could exist without council approval or oversight. We have the technology, the resources, the population, and now the military capability to maintain our sovereignty. The chamber erupted into chaos as the implications became clear. Species that had spent thousands of years as dominant powers were suddenly faced with the reality that they were no longer the strongest force in the galaxy. Worse, they were facing a species that had deliberately remained hidden until it was powerful enough to challenge them directly. This is intolerable, the Vorthak delegate declared, its energy form now crackling with barely controlled power. The collective will not accept the existence of an uncontrolled species with reality-altering capabilities. If humanity will not accept guidance, humanity will be eliminated. The moment the threat was spoken, every human vessel in the system moved simultaneously, not toward the council station, but into defensive positions that clearly demonstrated their ability to protect themselves and each other. The movement was so fast and coordinated that it seemed like a single organism reacting to danger. Honored Vorthak, Admiral Chen said, her voice now carrying an edge of steel. You're welcome to try, but consider this carefully. If humanity can manipulate dark matter well enough to build ships like these, what do you think our weapons are capable of? The main display showed one of the human vessels extending what looked like a simple sensor array. The device began scanning a distant moon, and immediately every detector in the system registered impossible readings. The moon's gravitational signature was changing, its mass increasing dramatically. "We can alter the dark matter concentration around any object," Admiral Chen explained conversationally. "Increase its mass, change its gravitational field, alter its orbital mechanics. We can turn planets into black holes or make them float away from their stars like soap bubbles." She paused, letting the implications sink in. Every world, every space station, every fleet in this galaxy exists only because humanity chooses to allow it. We could collapse your home systems into gravitational singularities from half a galaxy away, and there's nothing your current technology could do to stop us. The silence that followed was different from the earlier shocked quiet. This was the silence of beings realizing that their entire understanding of power had just become obsolete. The architect presence spoke again, its words carrying a weight that seemed to bend space around them. Power paradigm shifted. Hierarchy structure invalidated. New equilibrium required for galactic stability maintenance. Elena stood, looking around the chamber at the alien delegates who were struggling to process the new reality. "Humanity doesn't want to rule the galaxy. We don't want to destroy the Council or eliminate other species. We want exactly what we've always wanted, the right to exist as free beings making our own choices about our own future. The question," she continued, "is whether the Council can accept a galaxy where strength doesn't automatically grant the right to rule others. Because that galaxy is what exists now, whether you recognize it or not." Admiral Chen's hologram gestured, and the tactical display showed the human fleet beginning to withdraw from its defensive positions. "The demonstration is complete. Humanity has shown its capabilities and stated its intentions. What happens next depends on whether the Council chooses cooperation or conflict." As the human vessels began fading back into their dark matter cloaks, Elena delivered humanity's final message. "The age of unchallenged galactic hierarchy is over. The question now is what kind of galaxy we build together." The Council chamber had never experienced silence like this. For the first time in 10,000 years of galactic governance, the assembled representatives of civilization's greatest powers sat without words, their minds struggling to process a reality that had changed completely in the span of a single meeting. Elena remained standing at the human delegation's position, watching the alien faces around her. The beacon in her hand had gone dark, but its message had been delivered with perfect clarity. Humanity was no longer asking for permission to exist. They were announcing their arrival as an equal power. This was the first to attempt speech, her crystal form cycling through colors that Elena's briefings had never covered. When she finally spoke, her harmonious voice carried undertones of something between awe and terror. "In 10,000 years, Thais said slowly, the Zephyrian hierarchy has believed itself to be the pinnacle of technological achievement. Our crystal matrices can self-repair, self-improve, and evolve beyond their original design. We thought this made us masters of matter itself." She paused, her form shifting to a deep blue that indicated profound contemplation. "We were manipulating toys compared to what you have achieved." The Vorthak delegate's energy form had stabilized into a configuration Elena had never seen before. Not aggressive, not defensive, but something that might have been respectful. When it spoke, its voice lacked the arrogant certainty that had characterized every previous statement. "The collective has existed as pure energy for 3,000 years. We believed that transcending physical form made us superior to all matter-bound species. Your demonstration suggests that we achieved transcendence of form but not of understanding." Elena noticed that delegations throughout the chamber were receiving urgent communications from their home governments. The news of humanity's capabilities was spreading across the galaxy at light speed, and every major civilization was scrambling to understand what this meant for their own security and status. Dr. Chen moved to the chamber's central display, calling up a new image that showed the galaxy as humanity now understood it. Instead of the neat divisions of council-controlled space and primitive regions, the map showed overlapping spheres of influence, trade networks, and mutual dependencies that painted a much more complex picture. "The galaxy has never been as simple as the Council believed," Dr. Chen said quietly. "Hundreds of species exist in the spaces between your empires. Thousands of worlds have developed their own solutions to the challenges of existence. The Council maintained order by ensuring that no one could challenge your technological supremacy. That paradigm just ended. The architect presence had been silent since humanity's final demonstration, its impossible geometry seemingly frozen in calculation. When it finally spoke, the words carried implications that resonated through dimensions Elena couldn't perceive. Calculation complete. Probability matrices revised. Council hierarchy structure obsolete. New paradigm integration required for survival maintenance. Elena looked around the chamber, meeting the gaze of every delegate. Humanity proposes a new model for galactic civilization. Not hierarchy based on technological dominance, but cooperation based on mutual respect and shared benefit. Impossible, said a delegate from the hegemony, a species Elena's briefings described as masters of biological engineering. Galactic civilization requires structure, order, controlled development. Without the guidance of advanced species, primitive worlds destroy themselves with weapons they cannot understand. Admiral Chen's hologram reappeared in the chamber's center. Honored delegate, humanity was never guided by the Council. We developed dark matter manipulation independently, achieved interstellar civilization without oversight, and built a fleet capable of challenging every power in this room. We're proof that species can achieve greatness without being controlled by their superiors. Besides, she added with a slight smile, who decides which species are primitive and which are advanced? 3 hours ago you considered humanity primitive. Now you're forced to acknowledge that we've achieved something none of you managed in 10,000 years of trying. The silence that followed was broken by an unexpected voice. A delegate from the Confederation, a small alliance of worlds that rarely spoke in council sessions, stood up slowly. The human delegation raises valid questions, the Confederation representative said. My people have observed council governance for 2,000 years. We have seen promising species suppressed because their ideas threatened established order. We have seen technologies banned because they challenged existing power structures. Perhaps the time has come to consider whether the Council's methods have prevented progress rather than guided it. Elena felt a shift in the chamber's atmosphere. For the first time, other voices were being raised in support of change. The demonstration of human power had done more than shock the Council's major powers. It had given hope to species that had long accepted their subordinate status. Change is dangerous, Thys declared, her crystal form now blazing with defensive colors. The Zephyrian hierarchy has maintained galactic peace for 10 millennia. Stability requires proven leadership, not experimental democracy. Peace for whom? Elena asked quietly. Peace for the 47 species that have disappeared from galactic records after questioning Council policies. Peace for the hundreds of worlds that exist under client status, forbidden from developing their own potential. Or just peace for the Council's core members? The chamber erupted into arguments as species that had remained silent for centuries suddenly found their voices. Small civilizations that had accepted Council authority without question were now openly discussing alternatives. The careful political balance that had maintained galactic order was crumbling in real time. Admiral Chen raised her hand, and the arguing stopped. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone commanding the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Humanity offers the Council 3 choices, she said. First, acknowledge human sovereignty and begin negotiations for a new galactic order based on cooperation rather than dominance. Second, attempt to maintain the current system through force, knowing that humanity now possesses the capability to defend itself and its allies. Third, withdraw from human space entirely and allow us to develop our own relationships with other species. She paused, letting the options sink in. We prefer the first choice, but we're prepared for any of the 3. The Vorthak delegate's energy form flickered through patterns that suggested intense internal debate. The collective requires time to evaluate these developments. The implications extend beyond simple diplomatic relations. Time granted, Elena said. But understand that human patience has limits. We've revealed our capabilities as a gesture of good faith. We expect that good faith to be reciprocated. Dr. Chen activated one final display, showing the human fleet as it began its withdrawal from the Kepler system. 50 massive vessels folding back into dark matter concealment, becoming invisible to every sensor system the Council possessed. In moments they would be gone, leaving only gravitational echoes to prove they had ever existed. Before we depart, Dr. Chen said, There's one more thing the Council should understand. This fleet represents less than 10% of humanity's total dark matter manipulation capability. What you've seen today was not our military might on full display. It was a diplomatic courtesy call. The implications of that statement sent shockwaves through the chamber. If 50 vessels capable of reshaping reality were just a small demonstration, what was humanity capable of when truly threatened? Elna picked up her diplomatic case, the now silent beacon disappearing into its padded interior. The human delegation will return to Earth to report on these proceedings. The Council has 30 standard days to provide an official response to humanity's proposal for a new galactic order. She looked around the chamber one last time, noting the stunned faces, the flickering energy forms, and the impossible geometries that seemed frozen in calculation. The age of unchallenged hierarchy is over. The question now is whether the galaxy will embrace the opportunities that change brings, or cling to the illusions of a power structure that no longer exists. As the human delegation walked out of the council chamber, the silence behind them was complete. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Galactic Space Council had nothing to say. In the corridor outside, Elena finally allowed herself to breathe. The hardest part was over. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy not as supplicants seeking approval, but as equals demanding respect. The future was uncertain, but it would be a future shaped by human choices as much as alien ones. Admiral Chen's voice reached them through their communication devices as they approached their ship. Flagship Event Horizon departing Kepler system. All fleet units return to dark matter concealment and resume patrol patterns. The galaxy, she added with evident satisfaction, is about to become a much more interesting place. Behind them, in the silent council chamber, the future of galactic civilization hung in the balance, waiting for ancient powers to decide whether they could adapt to a universe where humanity had claimed its place among the stars.